this is something you see time and again with these teams, is they'll continue to play Warrior over and over again. So a little bit of a... Apparently we got a little bit of a mix-up here. So we actually have 2 Warriors coming in this matchup right now. So we'll get this straightened out as soon as we can. But in the meantime, it is actually a Dragon Warrior deck, Jay.
Yeah, Dragon Warrior, of course, you see the Alexstrasza's Champion, a card that people were sort of on the fence about when TGT was first being talked about, and of course, these new cards were first being talked about. A lot of players looked at it at first and said, well, that's okay. And then as time went on, people were like, actually, in a Dragon deck, that's really good. A 3/3 charge for 2 mana, if you have a Dragon in your hand, that's fantastic.
Yeah, this is actually one of the first decks that I had built right when Grand Tournament came out. Was Dragon Warrior, and it was because of Alexstrasza's Champion. You know, one of the key cards in Warrior is, especially the control variants, is going to be Fiery War Axe. It's a great card to use on turn 2 defensively, but it didn't really have too much offensive capacity. You know, once you'd expended both charges, that was it. You'd gotten 6 damage, but ideally you got some cards out of that. Alexstrasza's Champion, I don't like to compare it to Fiery War Axe, but I do. You know, this is a card that has a lot of offensive potential, which is something that you don't often see from Warrior. I mean, in a spot like this, turn 2 Alexstrasza's Champion, this could really get in some damage, but it's going to show you where their concern actually is right now. They're going to choose to armor up. So rather than get aggressive with Alexstrasza's Champions and try to start swinging away, they want to play a very defensive game. They want to have a ton of armor, kill a bunch of minions very efficiently, and rely on that Harrison Jones to pick off a Death Spite, and that's going to be the turning point in the game for them, where they can lock things up and scale into their late game.
Yeah, Dragon Warrior, the control variants of Dragon Warrior, which are pretty much the only variants of Dragon Warrior, they don't pressure that well. Yeah, Alexstrasza's Champion can be an offensive tool, and against some decks, they can take a more offensive path, but it's not as similar, it's not that similar to like Dragon Priest, where it's all about tempo. It is very late game focused.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about it is the deck can end up putting a lot of pressure on it. So the only opportunity I would see for them to actually branch out here and really put a lot of pressure is, say they coin out a Twilight Drake here, or I'm sorry, a Twilight Guardian. That 3/6 taunt is going to protect the Alexstrasza's Champion from potential weapons.
Yeah, like a Fire War Axe.
So if that happens, maybe they follow that up and get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, and I mean, they do have some means. The Dragon cards, usually because they require Dragon Synergy in the hand, they do have stats that sort of outweigh the cost. Like a 3/6 taunt for 4 is strictly better than a Taz Dingo, which is a 3/5, not counting what they become when they're silenced. But since they require that additional synergy with the dragons in your hand, usually they are overstated. So they can apply pressure with those cards early on because of the fact that usually you'll be able to trade up with those things. You'll be able to keep hold of the tempo, but a lot of times it just doesn't really line up for you as a Dragon Warrior in order to play too aggressively.
Yeah, and so this is the turn where they're really going to have to think a long time and make that decision. Again, do they want to coin the Twilight Drake here? Do they want to keep going for armor? These are decisions that, you know, they're not very tough from, you know, the looks of things. They all look like great turns. The thing about it is they mean such different things for how the game's going to pan out. And you're talking turns and turns in advance of where this is going to happen. So this is a really interesting play, actually, which I kind of like. So they're going to go with Alexstrasza's Champion here and push for 3 damage. What they're trying to do is get a Death Spite out of the other player's hands so they can line up this Harrison Jones right on target. That's the goal here. Now, there's no Death Spite in the other hand, and there's no Fiery War Axe either. So this play is actually going to pay off in a very different way, which is Alexstrasza's Champion is just going to start hammering away for a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's really interesting that they just decided to wait a turn.
I like it because it's lining up the Harrison Jones. This is kind of showing you the difference you get when collective minds are at work.
Yeah.
One guy says, I think we should play this Alexstrasza's Champion. The next guy starts talking about the way the next couple turns pan out if you wait a turn, and maybe even just keeping your options open afterwards. And so that's the beauty of this play that they made on turn 2, was that their options are still open. They can still take this direction. Yes, they did lose 3 damage, but they don't know what's in the other player's hand. They could just as easily have seen a Fiery War Axe set on board and just said go. You know, and again, the fact that they did see a Fiery War Axe, I think really gives them an indicator that maybe it's Death Spite instead. So just playing around all their options, just all around very patient, very collective play.
As we talked about earlier, that 3 damage probably not going to matter because you usually don't win the game by pressure. You win the game by sort of that war of attrition, just outlasting all the crazy stuff that Patron Warrior can do with armor, with just straight up health gain, with removal. which Dragon Warrior has in his hand.
And this hand is stacking up really quickly too. I mean, you back 2 Shield Maidens behind this. You were looking at turns where Grim Patron Warrior cannot answer these minions effectively, and then more so, they can't actually abuse what you have without a giant Frothing Berserker turn. So there's 2 things that are working against that. Number 1, you got to set up a Death Spite. Number 2, you got to have the mana to play all these cards. Number 3, you have to have your opponent not killing you while you find this much time, and that's not what's happening right now. They're just putting the pedal to the metal and saying, let's go. This is 6 points of uncontested damage right now.
Yeah. And now they got to start using some of these cards in their hand to get rid of these pesky dragons.
Right, and if
these are the smallest creatures in the deck.
Yeah, and if you're in this spot, do you really want to execute a 3/6 taunt?
No.
Because now, at this point, you know that there's more stuff coming. That Twilight Guardian right there has told you that there are more dragons in this hand. What are they, and do we need this execute for later?
Could be Nefarian. That's scary.
It could be a Sarah. It could be. I mean,
it could even be Alex Straza.
With Alex Straza's champion. So they're going to go with execute. If they're using this Cruel Taskmaster right away, this is definitely execute. But again, looking at this hand, it is pretty darn bone dry. There's no card draw in here. There's not an Emperor Thor's on. They have a lot of damage in their hand, but they need time to find this stuff. So that's really the big difference here. Are they going to have the time?
Yeah, and once both executes are gone, that's just the green light for Control Warriors or Dragon Warrior players alike to just slam down a big threat that usually you'd hold on to against other classes until removal was expended. You know that Patron Warrior only plays a limited amount of removal. 2 execute, sometimes 1 Shield Slam, but a lot of times they can't even activate that Shield Slam as well as a Control Warrior have because they don't have tools like Shield Maidens.
Yeah, and look at the benefit also that this aggressive play provides, is again, your game plan is not to just be outright aggressive and try to muscle your opponent out of the game. It's that the pressure forces your opponent to make a decision at some point. They've already gotten an execute on a 3/6, and now they have plenty of options. They could very easily swap to defense here and still have a great mid-game assault with these 2 Shield Maidens. They got Shield Slam to back that up, and they still have the Harrison Jones. So the world at their fingertips right now. And using Alex Straza's champion to sit here as a 3/1, poke a little bit of damage away, put a 5/5 on the board, we're going to get right back to swinging pretty darn soon.
Yeah, and how does Austin deal with this? They don't have weapons. No Mission Vendor, yeah, they could draw, but they only have 2 mana left. These Shield Maidens are going to stick on the board. They're going to do repetitive damage. And all of a sudden, Austin's looking at a situation where they're going to have to play defensively for a large portion of this game.
Yeah, ideally, they just find the time to make use of the Frothing Berserker the Whirlwinds. But again, you give a Control Warrior time, you're looking at a very large amount of armor, protecting your skull and your shoulders and your stomach and protecting everything, basically.
No, he's got a little bit of vulnerability there. Doesn't protect that 6-pack.
Just shredded.
Doesn't need protection. It's rock solid.
But that's the other problem that's happening here, too. And one of the reasons why this deck is thought to match up so well versus Grim Patron. You have just enough threats to force your opponent to do something.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're building that big armor barrier. So even when your opponent does find the right burst damage, they have to have enough, and they have to hope you don't have an answer, and have to have a follow-up.
And they have Harrison Jones, and it looks like we were switched. So Austin's the Control Warrior team, and Duke is the Patron Warrior team.
Yeah, we're getting word on admin. We're getting everything clarified at the moment. Austin is up 1-0 over Duke at the moment, and the Control Warrior pick here, you know, I have to say, bringing Control Warrior is a bold move. But if you really think about it, so many people who are playing Hearthstone and they're playing on ladder, they're going to be playing Grim Patron Warrior because it's such a powerful deck. If you can build the right lineup to target that, it is fantastic against it.
Yeah, there's 2 types of lineups. There's lineups that supplement a Patron Warrior, and there's lineups that do well against Patron Warrior. And Austin with Control Warrior, presumably Handlock, and a fast mid-range Druid, that's a lineup that screams, hey, we're going after Patron Warrior players.
Yeah. And so, again, this Death Spite, oftentimes this would be, I think, a big enough threat to really, you know, kind of put Austin on the back foot and make them think for a second. But they have that safety net with Harrison Jones. They're going to be able to pick off pretty much everything Duke's going to do for quite a while. They really need to find Emperor Thorson, and they really need to find that second Frothing Berserker.
Yeah, spot removal 2, Shield Slam with plenty of armor, Fiery War Axe. Austin's set for days. They just need a big threat to sort of supplement all that small removal that they have to really just slam down and take control of the board. I mean, they already have control of the board, but even after Duke has to go mow through these Shield Maidens, which are posing a big threat.
Yeah, they definitely have initiative right now, and this turn's going to, we're going to figure out whether or not they actually have control. And with Duke fighting against minions instead, you can tell that Austin now is in full control of this board position.
Oh, yeah. And this Death Bite is most likely going to a museum, and that will give Austin complete control over the board. Nice and clear, and the Fire Warax lines up perfectly.
Well, there's a chance you can use Alexstrasza's champion too. They're going to favor the Fiery Warax, don't want anything vulnerable to a Whirlwind. After it takes 2 damage, and now here comes the Armor Shred. So, you know, we saw Shield Slam in this build earlier. This is probably one of the last turns that's going to be viable. There's that second Frothing Berserker, though. So, you know, now the hand's actually dangerous. They have an out that will outright win them the game, which is Emperor Thorson. If they draw Emperor Thorson right here, you were looking at some massive turns. So they pick up Shield Slam, so they're able to take out Harrison Jones, kind of alleviate this clock for them a little bit. You know, but again, looking for that big Harrison Jones. They just lost their Death Bite, so there's no 2 Whirlwind effects anymore. But this hand is very dangerous. Austin, I mean, this is really the point, I think, where they have to turn up the heat, try to get this game over with before Duke finds the right cards.
Yeah, at the same time, though, they have to be thinking, well, even if they had a perfect hand, I mean, we haven't seen Emperor Thorson yet. Austin might be thinking, hey, we could take this one a little bit slowly, maybe. Maybe armor up, try and get our life total up, play small threats instead of dropping something big. So they might lull themselves into a false sense of security here.
Alexstrasza now. So I don't think it's going to get too much use this game. I think they're just going to be able to put out too much damage before they can get use out of that battle cry.
Yeah.
You know, it will set a player's health to 15, but if you just got plenty of dragons, you know, do you really need Alexstrasza at this point? I think you just start doming.
Well, I mean, next turn you play Alexstrasza, you can throw Duke down to 2 health with how much damage you have on the board. 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, or sorry, 4. Is that 14? 14 damage. They can put him to 1.
Yeah, and that Fiery Warax, honestly, there's a chance this has to just swing at this Twilight Drake and hope that they can push through the damage in the next couple turns. They need a miracle.
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna happen. Even if they do draw Emperor Thorson, which they need in order to unlock this combo. Because 1 Whirlwind effect, even with 2 Frothing Berserkers, I don't think that'd be enough. I think they need multiples. So
with 6 minions on board, the 2 Frothing Berserkers and a Whirlwind would be 16 damage.
They need that second one.
Yeah.
They need that second one.
But that's the problem here now is the mana. That's why Emperor Thorson is such a key card to this, is because it makes those Whirlwinds cost 0, makes those Frothing Berserkers cost 2. Suddenly, you've unlocked all that potential.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to have the time to be able to draw into Emperor Thorson, play it, have a full another turn to set up for that big combo that they need.
Yeah.
And
Duke even recognizes they have to make something happen here.
It's a good recognition, at least, though.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play to your outs at the end of the day. You know, even if it's slim to none, slim is a lot better than none.
Yes, it is.
It's actually an uncalculable increase in percent.
Right over my head. Sorry, friend. Yeah, so Alexstrasza played this turn, would allow Austin to push through Duke to 3 health with that 2 armor. They could take that offensive route. Could also play something like a Ysera, or even just throw down double Armor Smith.
Yeah, that's something else to talk about here too, is normally these 1 power minions can be a liability.
Yeah.
But they're sitting behind the taunt, and with 2 Armor Smiths on board, every single time your opponent invests a Whirlwind effect or they put a Grim Patron into something, it's creating a bigger barrier between your opponent and victory. And so they're going to go with the 3 damage battle cry here from Alexstrasza. Regardless of their health, it would have been set to 15, but they're just going to push the damage here, and I like it. I even say you swing with this Fiery Warax.
Sure, why not?
I mean, are they going to play Alexstrasza?
I mean, maybe there's a brawl, but even if they brawl, you put them at 3 health. They brawl, they can't really attack in anything, especially if Alexstrasza survives.
They're going to be a little bit conservative. I don't think it matters too much, but Duke, they're basically on, if Brawl is in their deck, they need to draw it right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's something big to point out, too. Brawl is often not even found in these builds, and it's nowhere in their hand right now. This is looking like 2-0 for Austin. This game has just been one-sided completely because of the power of these early Dragon cards.
Yeah. And you say Austin recognized it last turn. We haven't seen Emperor Thorson yet. Double Armor Smith would be a really safe play, but we don't really need to get to that point. Double Armor Smith, you put it on the board, like you said, every Whirlwind effect, it negates the extra damage that the Frothing Berserker gets, so it's impossible to get through.
Yeah, this is just one of the spots where they just have to kind of get lucky.
What can they even draw that's going to help them survive?
Well, let's find out if Execute is going to be just barely enough.
I don't think so.
So it's going to take them investing in Frothing Berserker, which is really the problem here. So Frothing Berserker, Whirlwind, It's going to take out the 3-1. They're going to be able to execute. They can use Fiery War Axe to take out a minion here. And they can use Frothing Berserker to take out the other one. But that's going to leave them at 3. So no mana left over to really take care of anything. And that is 6 points of damage you are staring at, Duke.
They don't have enough mana to armor up either, so that Fiery War Axe is just going to swing in for the win. And Austin is going to take a 2-0 lead. Definitely targeting that patron.